Hey everybody, I'm Nuke the Fridge. We are here with Chau from Downsized. How are you doing today?
Hi, it's Downsizing.
Downsizing. Well, we're downsized, and we're downsizing even lower now. It's been a long day already with all the press conferences and everybody we talked to.
But, I know, I'm surprised I caught that even.
Exactly, it's just been crazy. But let's get right into the film. Your character is such a strong character. Mm-hmm. And really outshines everybody else. When you got the script, what did you think about it after reading it and reading the story and your role in being a part of it?
I knew that it was really special, and stories that weave together topics and ideas that I care about in a creative and fresh way do not come along very often. It is because it's so difficult to talk about issues that are important in a way that people want to hear it and want to listen to it. So part of that is accomplished through humor, through a little bit of levity, because when you say that the movie is about immigration or climate change, yeah. People feel like they know what that story is going to be, and they're not really interested in hearing it. So you have to give it a different outline, a different frame. So for me, what resonated and stood out to me the most was the way the story humanizes immigrants and refugees and shows the invisible system that creates the inequality that we see in life, and were you at the press conference earlier today?
Yes, I was.
So I guess if I can add anything to what I said before, we have people who are being rounded up and deported. Just last month, 200 Vietnamese and Cambodian people were rounded up by ICE. We have the mayor of Puerto Rico on the news begging the president of the United States for aid. We have people in Flint, Michigan who do not have proper clean drinking water. This is happening all across the nation, and I'm not quite sure why people are so bothered by seeing it in a movie, but they're not bothered by it, not enraged by it in real life. So I'll leave it at that.
Exactly, because it doesn't make sense. Like when we were sitting in the press conference, which you'll hear later on, and you'll be able to read in Nuke the Fridge later, and on MUSE, what they were saying were just, it's like, did you see the same film I saw? Because to me, when you look at that movie, when you look at Downsizing, to me, it's like if you're going into a social studies class, mm-hmm. and you're looking at the film, and you're taking it, and it's kind of like a mm-hmm. human case study mm-hmm. on people. It's not the natural elements and everything are just side notes.
Yeah.
And and to bring it back to your character, it's like it's like a culmination of everybody who has been the person who says, no, I'm not going to stand for this. And you took the hardest leap because your character had no control over what you're doing. Are there any books or anybody that you looked up to, inspired to these leaders who are put in real life and done the same thing in order to add into your role?
Yeah, sure. People always want me to say that this character is my mom or something mm-hmm. like that, because that's the most obvious answer, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not my mom. I'm sorry. Sorry, it's not my mom. Because the character has so many different layers to her. She's an environmental activist. She's a woman of faith. She's a person with a disability. There was a lot. She's the most intersectional character that I have seen in a big studio movie, honestly. And I've never seen a character like this. So there was a lot to unpack there and a lot of different places to draw inspiration from. So for me, I grew up in Louisiana, and Flannery O'Connor is one of the great Southern writers. And when I was growing up, she sort of took on a mythological status to me, and I knew that she was this woman who suffered from lupus, and you always see pictures of her with her canes, and she still did really great work, and she was this spitfire who had this like fiery intelligence and this wit to her, and she was also a woman of faith, very intelligent, and a lot of times when stories show people of faith, they're not intelligent and they're sort of buffoons. And I really appreciated that this woman was a person of faith, but she's not, a wackadoo. And another place I drew inspiration from was when you live in a country with an authoritarian government and you cannot speak out and you cannot say certain things, you are punished for it. And that happens in so many parts of the world, and including the United States. And because it was specifically referenced in the movie, I drew a lot of inspiration from Berta Cáceres from Honduras, who was an environmental activist and was, paid the ultimate price for her activism, and her daughter still continues her legacy and all of that. So there's a lot of things that I drew inspiration from, but at the same time, she also had to be this like lovable person. And she is a compassionate human being. She just doesn't wear it on her sleeve the way a lot of female characters are written. They're just very soft and kind of daffy or insecure. My character is the complete opposite of that. She's very direct. And sometimes I've heard the criticism that, she's very harsh and she's a tiger mom. And I'm like, I have a feeling that if I were a little bit more demure, you'd be complaining that I was submissive,
Exactly. Like, you can't please everybody. You really can't please everybody.
It's a situation where I feel that you can't watch a film with binoculars. You have to look at the big picture and what downsizing is. To me, it's sort of like an ant farm, and you get to watch how the world is constructed and how the society creates these flows and how they're all connected with each other. As the woman earlier, one of her criticisms was that all of the poor people were brown, and that, or Asian or whatever, and we were just in the background, and there was this difference between the haves and the have-nots. Yes, I'm glad you picked up on the have and the have-nots, and the people of color are not there just to make Matt Damon's character look good or heroic or anything like that. What we're pointing out is, if anything, he's a part of the problem because he's not paying attention, and that's
right.
That's
it's a cookie cutter to what we're seeing now today in the world.
Yeah, and something that a lot of people also don't pick up on is, I'm sorry if I'm explaining too much of the movie.
Oh, no, that is fine, because I think that's what our readers would love to hear.
I saw our characters as as being parallel to each other, mirroring each other. We see through the downsizing process in the earlier part of the film, we see how the culture, how society quickly others this group of people. There's a guy in a bar who questions whether they should even get a full vote.
And that's another issue in which we're having today, not just with like Latinos like myself, but with Asian Americans and others who have come in who are immigrants of this country, and we see that right now.
And the sales pitch for Leisureland is that you can go and have a better life, which is what a lot of immigrants go to different, come over to the United States or other countries from where they are for a better life. And, of course, this is a little bit more ridiculous. It's different, but where we see Paul, Matt's character, end up is a place of loneliness and just feeling lost, and that is a part of the immigrant and the refugee journey is feeling lost at sea and not having feeling grounded in any sort of thing, because you don't have a support system and you don't know quite what the next step is in your life, and most Americans will never know what that feels like, and as much as you can through Matt's character, that's
right.
Where why we have that. So I'm not. It's a beautiful story to me, and it's a creative one and a fresh one. So I'm very proud of it. I don't know quite what else to say.
Well, let's get into some fun questions
Okay.
now. Let's get into. We got all the political stuff out there now, and the really in-depth about the film. Now let's talk about the technical aspect of the film, because some of the imagery of when you have your leg missing, which in real life she doesn't, it is amazing. It is an amazing work. How was it acting with the blue screen and to the prosthetics to make sure that when they go into in the technical phase that they're able to get it perfectly right? And as an actor, how does that?
Yeah, I've never done any work in special effects in this way, and I've never had to have a physicality in my in any characters. Sure, all characters carry themselves a different way, but this was one where I had to do a lot of research. I had an amputee consultant, and I went with her to the rehabilitation center. She was also a left leg below the knee amputee. I wore an apparatus called an eye leg. I was strapped onto my knee, and I learned how to walk again. I started off with that. I walked in between two rails, and the physical therapist was standing on the other end and was cheering me on, and the rails were there so I wouldn't fall over. And once I safely could walk in a straight line, then I graduated to carrying a tray and not walking, learning how to balance something, and then I practiced picking things off of the ground and how that changes your body, what that feels like, and then learning how to walk upstairs and downstairs. So it was learning how to do all of the things that we take for granted on a daily basis. And that was a very special experience for me, because I thought I was going to go in there and be by myself. But there were other patients there who actually had disabilities and were actually doing real work. And here I was, the bozo actor who was just, in there doing research. So that I was very grateful that they were gracious and welcoming to me. And I'm glad that through this character, we can also see a person with a disability who's not feeling sorry for themselves, who is living a very full life. And again, 1 in 5 Americans, I think, identify with a disability of some sort. So that's 20% of the population, but for some reason we never see their stories represented on screen, and certainly not in such a proactive way. So I was very happy to be a part of that, and it's just a really special role for me. But getting back to your original question about the visual effects process, I tend to not like to have to be futzed with. And for women in particular, we always have to wear a lot of makeup and false lashes and hair extensions and all of that. So usually before they start rolling, the hair and makeup team will come over and dust your face and zhuzh your hair, and it's always distracting to then launch into a scene after that. But in my case, I didn't have any special hair or makeup, and that was nice. But then as a trade-off, I had this prosthetic that I had to wear, and so the visual effects guy would come over and stick a pink sticker on my leg and readjust my little green sock that I had on. But for the most part, it was a pretty humane process. I didn't feel like it interfered with the acting very much, and that was a priority for Alexander.
Very cool. And the last question is, what can you tell the Nuke the Fridge and the MUSE fans to go get them out to go see this film?
Well, you know, we're in December, and it's that time of year where you start reflecting on your life because the new year's coming up, and you want to think about how you can change and you know, things that you got right, things that you could do better. I think this is sort of the perfect film for this time of year.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Chau, for
Thank
sitting
you.
with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.
And don't forget to stay tuned to Nuke the Fridge and MUSE at nukethefridge.com and SoCalMuse.com.
If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch more coverage from MUSE.